The first drop falls like a secret. It touches the roof with a sound so small you might almost miss it. Then another follows, and another, until the rhythm builds into a gentle chorus. You lie still, listening, letting your body loosen as the storm begins its patient song. Rain is the oldest lullaby, sung long before voices, long before words, long before the first story was ever told. The air changes when it rains. You can feel in your lungs, cooler, heavier, washed of dust. The scent that rises, that fresh, earthy perfume, has a name, petrichor. It is made by tiny molecules released from soil when rain first touches it. Long ago, when you were small, you may have smelled this fragrance and thought it was the earth breathing. And in a way, you would not be wrong. The rhythm of drops on glass, on leaves, on earth becomes a pattern your mind cannot resist. Your brain loves rhythm. It leans into it like a body rocking in a hammock. Heartbeats follow rhythm. Breathing follows rhythm. Waves of thought do too. That is why, even as you listen now, you feel yourself swaying inward, calmer with each soft repetition. Rain is not just falling water, it is gravity and sky in conversation. Tiny droplets form when vapor gathers around microscopic dust, salt, or pollen floating invisibly in the air. They swell as they meet one another, until they are heavy enough to let go. What you hear tonight is the sound of countless invisible meetings, countless tiny stories coming together, then surrendering to the pull of earth. And yet, the sound feels personal. It feels like the rain is speaking to you alone, as if its rhythm is tuned to your inner ear. This is part of the brain's quiet trick. When patterns repeat, you imagine meaning. The drops on the window are random, but your mind weaves them into something steady, almost like a heartbeat. Your heartbeat. Outside, the world grows blurred. Raindrops streak the glass, bending streetlight into threads of silver. Light refracts, splitting, softening. Shapes lose their edges, the way memory does when you're drifting into sleep. Science tells you that water bends light because it slows it down, forcing it to change direction. But lying here, watching, it feels less like science and more like enchantment, as if the rain is painting new versions of the world for your eyes alone. Notice how your body responds. Shoulders lower, breath slows, muscles unclench without command. You're not doing this consciously, your nervous system is. Humans are wired to rest when rain falls. Long ago, storms meant shelter. When rain covered the land, predators grew quiet, prey hid still, and the safest action was to remain tucked away. Even now, in the safety of your room, your body remembers that ancient rhythm of survival. To listen, to wait, to rest. There is something comforting about knowing that your stillness is not laziness, but history carried in your cells. You are part of a pattern larger than yourself, a body obeying echoes of the past. The sound of rain can mask other noises. This too is science. It is called white noise, though rain is gentler, more organic. Each drop scatters its sound across many frequencies, filling the air with a blanket of evenness. Your brain, searching for sharp edges or sudden changes, finds none, and so it relaxes, lowering its guard. It does not need to stay alert. Nothing is sneaking through the sound of rain. Every culture has given rain its own myths, its own voices. Some saw it as tears of the sky, some as blessings, some as messages from ancestors. You may not carry those old beliefs, yet when the rain comes, you feel something beyond explanation. Science and myth both agree. Rain changes the way humans feel. Serotonin rises, anxiety eases, the body releases the tension it didn't know it held. You listen more closely. Can you hear the layers? There is the steady tap on the roof, deep and soft. The sharper pings on the window. The whisper as it runs along gutters. And somewhere beneath it all, the faint hum of wind moving through leaves. Each sound has its place in the orchestra, together forming something whole. This, too, is how your mind works. Billions of neurons firing, each with its own signal, each small and fragile alone. But together, they create the endless symphony of thought and memory. Rain outside, thought inside. The two mirror each other, patterns overlapping until it's hard to tell where the storm ends and your mind begins. Your breath is slower now, as though it wants to match the pace of falling water. Inhale, exhale, drop, drop. Breath and rain keep time. Perhaps this is why people fall asleep so easily to storms. The body finds a partner in the world outside, a rhythm to follow without effort. And as the drops grow steadier, you begin to feel the edges of stories forming. Stories not of words at first, but of moods, sensations, half-remembered moments. The sound of rain at a childhood window, the damp air of a school morning, the shelter of a bus stop with strangers. Memory drifts like fog, soft and without urgency. This chapter of the night is only beginning. The storm is gentle, but like all things in nature, it shifts. The rain you hear now may grow heavier. It may play new rhythms, change the texture of sound. That is the wonder of storms. They are alive with movement. Never the same twice, yet always familiar. Somewhere beyond the sound of water, the world waits. Houses stand, roads stretch, trees bend. Beyond the edges of what you can hear, there are movements hidden. You do not see them, but they exist. Footsteps, perhaps, the kind that carry stories of their own. And so you lie here listening, knowing the first drop is only the beginning. Each sound is an opening, each rhythm a doorway. You wonder, if you listen more closely beyond the blanket of rain, what else might you hear walking in the night? The storm has found its rhythm now. Drops weave together into a steady curtain of sound, soft and endless. You lie listening, wrapped in the warmth of your room, when suddenly you think you hear something else. A faint pattern hidden beneath the rainfall. Footsteps, not loud, not certain, but they're the suggestion of a weight pressing against the ground, then lifting again. Muffled, irregular, like someone walking without urgency. The kind of sound that makes you lean inward, listening more closely, unsure if it is real or just imagined. Rain plays tricks with sound. Science explains this quietly. Each drop is not only a splash, but also a tiny vibration that joins millions of others, filling the air with noise. This blanket of sound is thick, yet uneven, bending and carrying other noises in surprising ways. A twig snapping far away may sound as though it's just outside your door. A voice across the street may feel like it comes from behind your shoulder. The air itself changes the way you hear. On rainy nights, sound travels differently because water molecules are heavier than dry air. Lower, deeper sounds can stretch farther, while sharp sounds blur and soften. This is why a single footstep, real or not, can feel so close, so intimate, even when hidden beneath the rain's cover. You listen again. The footsteps seem to come and go, arriving only when your mind drifts, leaving when you try to focus. This, too, is part of how your brain works. The mind is a pattern seeker, always searching for order in chaos. The rain falls randomly, but you string the sounds together like beads on a necklace. A pause between drops feels like a step. A heavier splash feels like a heel. Soon, you're hearing not just rain, but someone or something moving through it. Isn't it remarkable how your senses and imagination entwine? The science of perception tells us that hearing is not just about the ear, it is about the brain. Sound waves arrive, but it is the brain that builds them into meaning. In this way, you're not simply listening, you're creating. The footsteps you hear may not exist outside of you, but inside, They are real enough to stir your breath, to shift the rhythm of your heart. You picture the porch, wetwood darkened by rain, small puddles gathering in its grooves. The night beyond it is blurred, softened by mist and shadows. Someone could be standing there, or no one at all. The rain makes both possibilities believable. Long ago, before electricity lit the night, humans depended deeply on sound. A footstep outside the firelight could mean danger, or company, or mystery. Even now, though your world is safer, your body remembers. The rustle of leaves, the creak of a floorboard, the cadence of steps, each awakens an old vigilance. Yet here, wrapped in your room, you are safe. What you feel is not fear, but curiosity. And so, you listen more deeply. The footsteps are almost comforting now, a reminder that you are not alone in the storm. Even if no one is there, the sound becomes a companion, moving gently at the edges of perception. Perhaps this is why ghost stories so often begin with footsteps in the night, because they sit at the border of science and imagination, halfway between the world outside and the world within. The rain deepens. Droplets strike the porch roof in heavier bursts. For a moment, the footsteps vanish entirely, swallowed by the storm's steady drone. Silence, or something close to it, fills the spaces between. Then, faintly, the rhythm returns. Step, step, step. Think of how a bat listens in the dark. It sends out a sound too high for human ears to catch and waits for its echo. From those echoes, it maps the world. You too are mapping tonight, piecing together the unseen landscape from every drop and step, every shift in tone. This is your version of echolocation, the quiet art of listening into the unknown. There is something dreamlike in this act. To listen so deeply is to blur the line between waking and sleeping. Already, your body feels heavy. The footsteps do not frighten you. Instead, they draw you further into a state of softness, as though each imagined step leads you deeper inward. You imagine the person who might be walking, not clearly, not in detail, but as a vague figure in the rain, not threatening, not urgent. Perhaps they are lost. Perhaps they are only passing by. Perhaps they are not a person at all, but simply the echo of your own thoughts, given shape by the storm. Outside, the world continues. Water flows along gutters. Trees bend under the weight of droplets. The ground grows soft and dark with moisture. Somewhere, real footsteps are indeed pressing into soil, grass, or stone. The earth is full of walkers tonight. Animals, travelers, strangers unknown. You are part of this larger world, connected by the single thread of rain. The sound lingers, then fades, then lingers again, like memory itself, sometimes sharp, sometimes blurred. You find yourself asking, if footsteps are only sound, then what is memory but an echo of your own past footsteps? Each one a trace that remains long after the moment is gone. This thought softens you further. Rain outside, memory inside. Both patterns carried by air, by neurons, by rhythm. You're made to hear, to remember, to imagine. That is what it means to be human. The footsteps pause once more, and this time you feel as if they are waiting for you to notice something beyond them, waiting for your eyes to lift toward the window, where the night is shifting in quiet ways. Rain bends light, scatters it, reshapes it. What you see through the mist is never quite what it seems. Somewhere out there, past the blurred porch, past the curtain of water, a glow begins. Soft, faint, almost hidden in fog. A lantern, or perhaps only a trick of light. And so, you wonder, if you follow the footsteps with your eyes instead of your ears, what would you find glowing in the distance, waiting to be seen? At first, it is only a shimmer. A faint glimmer through the curtain of rain, distant and fragile, as if the night itself is holding its breath. You blink once, then again, to be sure. The footsteps you thought you heard a moment ago fade away, replaced by this quiet glow. It hovers just beyond the edge of the porch, inside the mist. A lantern, or something that wishes to be one. The rain softens the world into watercolor, but the light insists, trembling through layers of fog. Each drop of mist bends it, scatters it, reshapes it. That is the nature of fog. It is not emptiness, but countless droplets suspended in air, each one a tiny lens. As light passes through, it bends in strange ways, shifting directions, softening edges. That is why the lantern does not stand still. It seems to breathe, to move, to waver as if alive. Your eyes try to steady it, but your vision cannot. The glow drifts, slides, dances. Science names this scattering diffusion. The droplets of fog break the light into pieces, sending them outward in many directions. Your eye catches fragments. Your brain knits them together. And what you see is not the lantern itself, but 1,000 versions of it, layered and trembling. There is comfort in this thought, that what you perceive is not the world as it is, but as your body translates it. The lantern is not only a lantern, it is also your mind, weaving threads of light into something meaningful. You and the fog are co-creators of this vision. The glow pulls your gaze outward. You lean into it in your imagination, as though your body could drift past the porch into the wet night. The rain is steady, but the mist thickens, wrapping itself around everything, turning sharp edges to suggestion. This is how fog works. It hides by revealing too much softness, by erasing contrast. Shadows blur, trees dissolve, the horizon vanishes. You no longer see where the earth ends and the sky begins. The lantern is the only anchor. Long ago, before electric bulbs, people carried lanterns like stars in their hands. Fire enclosed in glass, oil feeding flame, a circle of light moving with each step. In fog, these lanterns would glow larger than they were, halos spreading around them like a crown. To a traveler on a dark path, a lantern was both guide and mystery, proof that someone else was near, yet never entirely clear about who or what they might be. Now, lying here, you feel the same tug. The lantern is far enough that you cannot touch it, yet near enough that you cannot ignore it. And so your mind begins to wander. Who carries it? Is it still or moving? Is it waiting or simply flickering in place? But perhaps it is not a lantern at all. Perhaps it is only a trick of physics, a streetlight bent by fog, an illusion created by distance. Your brain is eager to name what it sees, eager to transform scattered light into something familiar. This is what the mind always does. It fills in gaps, smooths edges, gives shape to uncertainty. In this way, perception is not only reception, it is creation. And yet, even knowing this, you cannot shake the feeling that the glow belongs to someone. You imagine the faint outline of a figure holding it. Not threatening, not close, just there. A companion in the storm, silent and patient. Fog has always been a symbol of the unknown. Sailors feared it on the sea, for it hid both rocks and ships. Travelers feared it on land, for it swallowed paths. But poets loved it, because fog is the borderland between clarity and mystery. It is a reminder that you are never meant to see everything at once, that the world holds more than your eyes can gather. The lantern brightens, then dims, then brightens again. This is how your eyes respond to low light, adjusting, compensating, seeking steadiness. Your pupils widen to drink in more photons. The rods in your retina, more sensitive than cones, take over, making the scene less colorful but more dreamlike. Science explains the process, yet the experience feels like magic, as if your very body is yearning to see more than the night will allow. breath by breath, you sink deeper into the rhythm of rain. The lantern does not frighten you. Instead, it steadies you. It is something to hold onto in the blur, a small promise that the night is not empty. You feel your chest rise and fall with ease, as though the glow itself is breathing with you. You think of light not as a thing, but as a traveler. A photon leaves its source, perhaps miles away, perhaps only meters. It journeys outward, bouncing, scattering, bending. By the time it reaches your eye, it has lived a story you will never fully know. The lantern you see is not the lantern itself, but the last chapter of countless journeys of light. Each flicker is history arriving at your vision. This thought softens your mind even more. You are part of the story now, the final witness to each ray's long travel. The lantern exists because you see it. Without you, it would still glow, but its meaning would be incomplete. And so you watch, patient, calm, your body heavier by the moment. Rain whispers steady on the roof. Fog curls closer around the edges of thought, and the glow waits in silence. Perhaps you do not need to follow it. Perhaps the lantern's gift is not to lead you outward, but inward, toward your own quiet, toward the realization that you do not need every answer. Uncertainty itself can be restful, like fog cradling the earth, like rain veiling the night. Still, curiosity lingers. What if you step beyond the porch? What if you followed the glow, let it guide you into mist? Would it carry you safely forward, or would it lead you to something else, something hidden in the folds of night? The house behind you creaks softly, as if reminding you it is there, solid and listening. Every drop that lands on its roof, every groan of wood against damp air, becomes part of the night story too. The lantern shimmers, the fog thickens, and you wonder, if houses could listen as you do now, what stories might they hold in the rain? The lantern drifts in the fog, but behind you, the house waits. It stands steady, though not silent. You hear it in the small sounds it makes, a low groan in the beams, a soft tick in the walls, a drip where water finds a hidden corner. These are not empty noises. They are the house's way of speaking. Every home has its voice. You notice it most in storms, when rain presses against the roof and wind pushes at the edges. The walls respond, with shifting almost imperceptibly, air sneaking through seams. The science is simple. Temperature changes make materials expand and contract. Moisture seeps into wood, making it swell, then dry again when the air clears. Metal pipes carry water, releasing faint taps as they adjust. Together, these shifts compose the house's quiet song. But tonight, it feels like more than physics. Tonight, the house is a living companion. Its creaks sound like breaths, its sighs like murmurs. It does not feel empty, it feels aware. And as you lie listening, you sense that it is listening too. Rain amplifies the illusion. Water strikes the roof, streams along shingles, gathers into rivulets that race toward the gutters. Each droplet's journey is guided by angles of design, by choices made long ago when a house was built. Yet what you hear is not design, but intention, as if the house itself is deciding how the storm should move across its body. You picture the wood inside its walls. Once, those beams were trees, alive in a forest, swaying with wind and rain just as they do now. Even cut, shaped, and fitted, they remember. Their fibers expand and soften with moisture, as though reaching toward the storm they once stood in. Perhaps that is why the creak of beams in rain feels so alive, because in some way it is the echo of a tree still bending in weather. Listen closely. The sound is never random. Each board, each joint, each panel answers the rain differently. Some give sharp cracks like sudden laughter. Others hum low, as though whispering reassurance. Over time, you learn these voices the way you learn friends. You know which stair sighs under your step, which window rattles when wind is strong, which corner drips no matter how many times you patch it. These are not flaws, but signatures. They are the house's way of reminding you that you live together. Science tells us that humans bond with spaces. We map them in our brains as extensions of ourselves. The creak in the floor becomes as familiar as the beat of your pulse. The draft at the door feels like a quirk, almost a personality. Psychologists call it place attachment, the deep comfort we take in spaces that shelter us. But here, in the rhythm of the storm, it feels simpler. The house listens because you do. You give its sounds meaning, and in return, it gives you company. Notice how your body responds. Each creak does not alarm you, but steadies you. It is proof that the structure around you is alive in its own way, adjusting, settling, breathing. A house that makes no sound at all would feel less safe, less human. Silence would mean emptiness. But this soft chorus, rain above, wood around, breath within, reminds you that you are not alone. And perhaps, in some sense, the house really does listen. It holds your voice in its walls. Every word spoken here has vibrated against the air, has pressed faintly into surfaces. Sound waves may fade quickly to your ear, but science shows they linger, absorbed into matter in traces too faint to measure. The walls keep echoes you cannot hear, like memories they never forget. Think of it. Laughter settling into plaster, whispers sinking into beams, footsteps pressing into the floor. Each moment leaves its signature, just as rain leaves its scent in soil. The house carries your history in silence. That is why on nights like this, you feel it listening, because you know deep down that it remembers. The storm continues. Water trickles down unseen paths inside the walls. Pipes contract and expand. The roof flexes under steady drops. Every sound joins the greater rhythm, until you can no longer separate house from rain, rain from air, air from breath. You are inside it all, cocooned in the conversation between storm and shelter. Your eyes grow heavy, lulled by the idea that even the walls are companions. You're wrapped not only in blankets, but in structure, in beams, in history. The house is more than shelter. It is presence. And tonight, that presence listens with you, sighing softly in the rain. But then, in the pause between drops, you notice something more delicate. Not wood or water, not the house's own settling, but a sound that seems finer, almost impossible. Between the patter of rain, between the creaks of beams, there is something that feels like words. At first, you think it is your imagination. The rain's rhythm shaping itself into whispers, fragments of sentences you cannot quite catch. Yet the more you listen, the more certain you feel. There is meaning hidden in the spaces between, a language too soft to name. You wonder, if rain can whisper, what stories might it be trying to tell? The rain continues, steady and unbroken, yet something in its rhythm changes. You lie still, listening, as though within the curtain of sound a new voice has arrived. At first it feels accidental, a shift in the drops, a cluster striking at once, a pause followed by a sudden rush. But then, within these patterns, you think you hear words. Not clear words, not shaped by tongue or lips, but hints, syllables half-formed, like breath through reeds. The rain does not speak in sentences. It speaks in suggestions. And your mind, eager for meaning, leans forward to listen. This is what the brain does. It searches for patterns. Evolution has made it so. For thousands of years, survival depended on it. To notice the shape of a predator in shadows, the rustle of movement in leaves, the faint shift in the tone of voice. To be human is to find story in sound, to discover signal in noise. The rain offers the perfect canvas. Each drop is a note, each cluster a phrase. They strike the roof, the glass, the ground, creating rhythms too complex to repeat. Yet within this chaos, you hear the suggestion of order. A rising beat like a question, a sudden hush like a pause before reply. The storm becomes a dialogue, and you cannot help but lean into it. This is the mind's gift and its illusion. Scientists call it pareidolia, the tendency to see shapes where there are none, or to hear voices in meaningless sound. It is why we see faces in clouds, why we hear melodies in static. Your brain is a storyteller, unable to resist weaving threads of sense through threads of chance. And so, tonight, in the heart of the storm, it spins whispers from raindrops, a phrase you almost understand, a laugh hidden in the patter, a memory you thought was gone, summoned by nothing more than rhythm on glass. Perhaps the whispers come from outside, but just as likely, they rise from within. Rain is only water, after all, colliding molecules falling under gravity. But your mind, full of memories, full of voices, cannot help but project them into the storm. You hear echoes of conversations long past. You imagine words never spoken. The rain becomes a mirror, scattering your thoughts back at you in fragments. Notice how soft the illusion feels. Not frightening, not sharp, but gentle, like someone speaking from another room. You cannot quite make out the language, but its presence comforts you. To imagine voices in rain is to imagine company, as though the world itself is speaking in a code only you can hear. There is science here, too, hidden in the trick. Your brain is tuned to language in extraordinary ways. Even as a baby, you could distinguish patterns of speech, finding structure in sound before you knew its meaning. The human ear does not just hear, it predicts. It anticipates syllables before they are spoken, filling in gaps, completing phrases. That is why you can understand a sentence even when it is broken, why a familiar song can play faintly and you still hear it clearly in your mind. The rain takes advantage of this talent. Its rhythm teases you with fragments that resemble words, and your brain rushes to complete them. A tap sounds like a consonant. A drip follows, echoing as a vowel. Together, they become the ghost of a phrase. You almost hear your name. You almost hear a secret. You almost hear a lullaby no one taught you. It is not deception, but imagination at work. The world gives you noise. You return to its story. This, too, is a kind of creation. Close your eyes and listen again. Notice how the whispers change when you expect them. A moment ago, you thought you heard a question, so now you wait for an answer. Your mind provides one, shaping the rain into reply. You are not merely listening to the storm. You are co-writing it. Some cultures once believed rain carried messages from spirits, that each storm was a voice from ancestors or a warning from the gods. Others thought whispers in weather were omens, guiding choices, shaping fate. Though science explains it differently now, the experience remains unchanged. The storm still speaks, if not from beyond, then from within. Consider how vast the rain truly is. Each droplet begins as vapor, rising unseen, joining clouds, condensing until weight demands release. Millions fall together, each collision on roof or leaf a note in the symphony. Out of this immeasurable complexity, you hear meaning, the same way you look at stars scattered across darkness and draw constellations. It is less about what is there and more about how you connect it. And so the rain becomes not noise, but narrative. A story told by the sky, written across your roof, translated by your mind. You drift deeper into its rhythm. Whispers overlap, voices blend. You cannot tell if they are memories, inventions, or something older. Yet they guide you gently, like a hand at your back, leading you through dream. There is calm in this illusion. You do not need to understand the words. You only need to hear their rise and fall, the suggestion of companionship. Each whisper steadies you, drawing you further from wakefulness, closer to the soft country of sleep. But as your thoughts begin to blur, you notice something curious. Not just the whispers between drops, but a wider silence behind them. Beneath the noise, beneath the voices your mind invents, there is a stillness more profound than sound. It is not empty. It feels like waiting, as if silence itself is a message, as if the pauses between whispers hold more meaning than the whispers themselves. You wonder, what lives in that silence? The rain softens, yet the night remains alive with movement. You turn toward the window, where dim light bends through drops and streaks across the glass. What forms are not still, they flicker, stretch, and drift. Shadows move as though the storm itself is painting. You lie quietly, watching, letting the window become a canvas. The figures are vague. A branch sways, its outline broken by water. A passing car releases a brief flare, scattering into liquid shapes that ripple outward. A street lamp glows faintly through curtains of rain, its light fractured into soft, trembling fragments. And yet, the science of it is simple. Light bends when it passes through water. Each raindrop is a lens, a tiny curve of glass that redirects beams and changes their paths. The shifting shapes you see are not spirits or hidden lives. They are physics, refraction, reflection, distortion, a play of photons on glass. But your mind is restless in its creativity. It refuses to settle for plain explanation. Instead, it transforms. That shifting branch becomes the outline of a person. That fractured glow becomes the soft trail of a lantern, carried by someone unseen. A cluster of drops forms the wings of a bird, suspended only for a heartbeat before melting away. You are not misled. You're dreaming with eyes open. Science provides the canvas, but imagination colors it. This partnership is ancient, the mind and the world shaping each other. The shadows on the window are not mistakes. They are invitations, chances for you to wander within yourself, to see possibility where there is only physics. Consider the biology of it. In your brain, millions of neurons fire in harmony to process light. They do not simply receive, they interpret. When light touches the retina, signals travel backward into the mind. And in that space, meaning is built. The image you think you see is less a photograph and more a painting, composed in layers of expectation, memory, and association. The shadows are not out there. They are in a sense inside you. This is why you see stories in the window tonight. A flicker of motion recalls a childhood game. A wavering glow reminds you of someone you once knew. The shadows are ink, but your thoughts are the hand that writes. And because you're tired, drifting closer to sleep, imagination flows more freely. The boundaries of logic soften. You do not correct the illusions. You welcome them. The branch outside becomes a dancer bowing slowly. The patterns of water sliding down glass turn into rivers on a map of some undiscovered world. Even silence within the room gains its own weight, filling spaces like an unseen companion. There is comfort in this, for shadows need not be feared. Long ago, darkness often meant danger, predators waiting beyond the firelight. But here, in the quiet of your room, shadows lose their threat. They are gentle, soft-edged, tender. They are not watchers, but fellow dreamers, companions without words, reminding you that your mind is powerful enough to create company when you feel alone. Science can explain this comfort too. Your brain is tuned to search for human forms, for faces and gestures. It is why, in flickering light, you sometimes see a figure that is not there. It is not a flaw, it is survival's gift. By expecting presence, you feel less isolated. The world seems populated, even when it is not. Tonight, This instinct becomes a blessing. The shadows are not empty tricks. They are reassurance that you are not alone in your thoughts. Think of how shadows themselves are formed. Light travels in straight lines until interrupted. An object blocks the path, leaving absence behind. Yet absence itself becomes shape. The shadow is not the object, but its echo. It carries outlines without substance, whispers without voice. Watching them is like watching memory, something not fully here but not gone either. You breathe slowly, letting this thought linger. Shadows are memories of light. Without brightness, they could not exist. Without rain to bend it, they would not dance upon your glass. They are born from contrast, from the balance between presence and absence. In this way, they resemble the mind itself, creating pictures not from fullness alone, but also from emptiness, from what is left unsaid. As the storm outside deepens and fades in cycles, so too do the shadows. They shift with every gust of wind, with every car that passes, with every raindrop sliding down. They never remain the same for long. Like clouds, like dreams, they're constant in their change. You notice how calm this movement feels. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is fixed. The figures form, dissolve, and reform again. Watching them, you begin to accept the same rhythm in yourself. Thoughts appearing and vanishing, worries drifting in and away. The shadows teach you, without words, the art of impermanence. And so, your window becomes a teacher as well as a mirror. Science explains the bending of light, but your imagination makes it meaningful. Both truths rest together, the measurable and the mysterious, the physical and the poetic. You need not choose between them. Tonight, they coexist as rain and shadow, as thought and dream. You close your eyes for a moment, yet the images remain. Behind your eyelids, the shapes continue to shift, faint after-images glowing in memory. You are reminded that perception is not bound to sight alone. The world you experience is not only what enters through senses, but also what is built from within. Slowly, you open your eyes again. The shadows still move, but now they seem softer, more familiar, less like distortions of light, and more like companions passing by, pausing briefly to remind you that the night is alive with stories. Your breathing steadies. Your body sinks deeper into rest. The storm outside continues, and the shadows keep painting across your glass. But your mind drifts towards stillness, ready for what follows. For if shadows are echoes of light, then silence is the echo of sound. And as you listen between the rhythms of the storm, you feel the next lesson waiting, hidden not in presence, but in the spaces in between. The storm does not rest, though it grows quieter in rhythm. Outside, the wind gathers and releases in long sighs, brushing against walls, seeping through small cracks, pressing against corners of the house as though the night itself wishes to enter. You hear it most clearly at the door. The door does not stay still. It trembles faintly against its frame, responding to the changing air. Sometimes it clicks softly, as though nudged by invisible hands. Sometimes it groans, its hinges shifting with the weight of pressure. In the quiet intervals between gusts, it settles, almost calm, until the next swell of wind leans against it again. From where you lie, you watch the faint outline of it. The wood is swollen slightly from the rain, its fibers drinking in the damp air. Moisture makes the structure change, just enough that it resists closing perfectly. What seems like stubbornness in the door is only nature in motion. Expansion, contraction, the endless dance of material with its environment. Yet, despite knowing this, a part of you still feels the old pull of imagination. A door that will not stay shut seems like something more than wood and hinges. It carries stories in its movement, It whispers of visitors unseen, of presences that drift closer only to fade when looked upon. A door is never just a panel. It is a symbol, a threshold, a marker between inside and outside, safety and uncertainty, known and unknown. You remember how deep within the human mind thresholds carry weight. Across cultures and centuries, doors have been regarded as passageways not only in space, but in meaning. To cross a door is to change condition, from guest to family, from stranger to friend, from wandering to homecoming. And in the storm, when the door shakes against its frame, it feels as though the line between those worlds blurs. Science, however, has its own explanation. Air does not stand still. It is a restless sea of molecules, moving and colliding in every direction. Wind is simply air in motion, flowing from regions of high pressure to regions of low pressure. When gusts strike against the house, they push unevenly, creating tiny differences of force. The door, a thin boundary of wood and metal, responds to every variation. It shifts forward when the pressure outside rises, and it eases back when the pressure drops. The creak of the hinges is a voice of friction. Metal rubs against metal, releasing sound as the door shifts. The swollen wood resists, then yields, producing its own groan, a sound that feels alive, though it is only matter rearranging under stress. And yet, even in this knowledge, you feel the pull of story, because the human mind does not live by explanation alone. It lives by narrative, by symbols, by the quiet poetry of thresholds. The door becomes a stage where two worlds meet. The world outside, raw and storm-laden, and the world inside, softened by walls and warmth. The fact that the door trembles makes you aware of both realms at once. You feel sheltered, yet also reminded that the storm is not far away. Your body responds in subtle ways. The sound of the shifting door makes your heart beat just a little faster. It is instinct older than memory. Long ago, when night winds pressed against cave mouths or woven huts, a trembling barrier could mean danger, a predator prowling, an enemy waiting. That echo still lives within you, making the door's unsteady motion feel charged, alive, meaningful. But now, you remind yourself gently, you are safe. The door is not a warning, it is a teacher. It shows you how environment and structure speak to one another, how pressure and resistance create motion and sound. It reminds you that even something as ordinary as wood and hinges is part of the greater system of weather, water, and air. The storm outside is written in the language of the trembling door. You let your imagination return to the metaphor. Perhaps the door is more than a barrier. Perhaps it is also an invitation. For every door that closes can also open. It marks possibility, a path to something new. The fact that it does not rest firmly shut tonight reminds you that thresholds are rarely absolute. Boundaries, in truth, are porous. Air flows, moisture seeps, sound carries through. Inside and outside are not separate worlds, but connected spaces that touch and influence one another. As you lie there, you think of other doors, not only of wood and iron, but within yourself. Choices waiting to be opened, memories that remain ajar, hopes that never fully close, even when you believe you have walked away. Each threshold within the mind is like the door before you now, trembling faintly, waiting for a shift of pressure, a gust of courage, or the gentleness of time. The storm presses again, and the door groans. You imagine it speaking, not with words, but with presence. It says, I'm here to remind you that boundaries are alive, that safety is not stillness, but balance, that what is outside and what is inside are always in quiet conversation. Science deepens this thought. Consider the molecules of air again, pushing and pulling. They do not pause. They are restless, continuous. The difference between calm and storm is only the speed, the arrangement, the direction of this endless motion. Pressure builds, pressure releases. This is the nature of air, and the door is a recorder of its music. In a way, the door is not resisting the storm. It is dancing with it. Each push is answered by a shift, each lull by stillness. The hinges are instruments, creaking with every step of this dance. And you, lying here, are the listener, the witness. The storm is outside, the safety is inside, but the door belongs to both, moving between them, belonging to neither fully. This realization softens your thoughts. You no longer feel unsettled by the door's refusal to stay shut. Instead, you find comfort in its honesty. It is not broken, not haunted, not mysterious in some frightening way. It is alive with the language of nature. It carries the storm into your awareness, while keeping the storm itself at bay. It teaches you that boundaries do not need to be absolute to be strong. The longer you listen, the more the sound fades into rhythm. The clicks and groans become like a clock's heartbeat, steady in their unpredictability. You breathe with it, matching your inhale and exhale to the gentle unrest of the door. The storm is no longer something pressing against you. It is something you're a part of through the trembling of wood and hinge. Slowly, your body relaxes further. You realize that every threshold in life, every door that shifts and will not close, carries the same lesson. You cannot seal yourself away completely from what is outside, nor should you. Air must flow, sound must travel, light must enter, even shadows must sometimes slip across. To live is to accept permeability, to let the world touch you while still holding space for rest within. The door quiets for a moment. The wind outside pauses. You sense the stillness gathering, as though the night is inhaling. The silence is not empty. It is waiting, poised, gentle. You feel it drawing you deeper, inviting you to listen not only to the creak of wood, but to what happens when even the creak falls away. For what lies beyond the threshold of sound is not absence, but another kind of presence. A presence you are about to enter, as the storm softens and the world leans toward quiet. The storm does not keep time, and yet it seems to. Outside, rain falls in pulses, as if following a hidden metronome. You hear the drops on the roof, the windows, the gutters, each one part of a vast, irregular orchestra. And within this shifting music, another sound cuts steady and sure, the ticking of the clock. Tick, tock. It is small compared to the roar of rain, but its persistence makes it impossible to ignore. Every second, counted, measured, pinned into place. The storm drifts and wanders, but the clock insists on order. And together, they create a rhythm you cannot quite escape. You lie still, listening. The storm pushes against your walls, reshaping your perception of space. The clock measures it, dividing what is endless into pieces that feel smaller, more manageable. It is strange how sound bends time in the mind. Seconds can feel stretched, minutes can feel elastic, depending on how you attend to them. Science calls this time perception, the way your brain builds its sense of duration. There is no organ that measures time directly. Instead, your mind gathers cues, the pace of your breathing, the drip of water, the heartbeat that slows as you relax. Each cue becomes a marker, and when the storm adds its voice, those markers blur into something softer. The rain seems endless. It folds around you like a blanket of sound, each droplet a reminder of infinity. Your clock, by contrast, is finite. It ticks with boundaries, each sound a fence around a second. The contrast makes you wonder, which is closer to the truth? Is time a stream that flows without pause? Or is it a series of beads sliding along a string? Your body leans toward one answer. When rain falls steadily, your circadian rhythm, the ancient cycle that governs wake and sleep, responds. Darkness deepens melatonin's whisper, telling you it is time to drift. Cool air slows the heart. The mind feels safe in enclosure, lulled by the repetition of storm sounds. In such moments, time feels longer, wider, like an ocean stretching without end. Yet your clock denies this sensation. Its pendulum swings in obedience to physics. Mechanical or digital, it obeys rules far older than your imagination. Oscillations, vibrations, the consistent movement of matter through space. A quartz crystal vibrates. A gear rotates. An atom resonates at frequencies so precise they define what a second is. These rhythms are impartial. They do not slow with storms. They do not lengthen with dreams. And yet, as you listen, you cannot help but feel they do. The tick is swallowed by thunder, and suddenly a minute feels longer than usual. The rain rushes faster, and the tick seems to keep pace. Your mind ties them together, weaving causation from coincidence. The brain is a storyteller. It seeks meaning even in noise. That is why rain sometimes sounds like whispers, why shadows take on familiar shapes, why clocks in storms feel haunted. You think of the sailors of long ago, navigating by time. They measure distance not just by stars, but by sand in hourglasses, water in clepsydras, the steady swing of pendulums. For them, time was survival. A clock that faltered could mean a ship lost at sea. But here, in your quiet room, the stakes are different. Time is no longer survival. Time is sensation. It stretches or contracts depending on where your attention drifts. Rain, too, alters perception. The sound masks harsher noises, cocooning you in gentleness. Psychologists call this pink noise, a spectrum of sound that calms by balancing high and low frequencies. Pink noise slows the brain's electrical rhythms, drawing them closer to the waves of deep sleep. And so, as rain falls, your inner clock softens. You feel slower, not because time itself has changed, but because your body leans into the storm's lullaby. You close your eyes and imagine the mechanisms inside you. Tiny biological clocks in your cells, ticking through cycles of activity and rest. Together, they form the circadian rhythm, the orchestra of time within your body. Light and darkness are its conductor, but storms, too, leave their trace. Clouds dim the day, persuading the body that evening has come early. The air pressure shifts, hinting at rest. And so, inside you, another clock joins the chorus of the one on your wall. Tick, tock. The storm beats slower than the clock, but your body hears them both. Between the steady tick and the wandering rain, you drift into a state where minutes lose meaning. Each tick feels heavier, as if stretched by distance. Each raindrop feels lighter, as if time dissolves into mist. You wonder if this is why clocks in storms feel haunted. They seem less like machines, more like presences. The rain transforms them into companions, each tick a heartbeat, each tock a breath. Your imagination paints the clock as something alive, keeping vigil as the storm passes. In truth, the clock does nothing but measure. It knows nothing of storms, nothing of you. But meaning does not come from the clock. It comes from your mind, always ready to weave patterns, to find comfort in rhythm, to turn mechanics into poetry. Science explains the mechanics clearly. Oscillations, circuits, steady intervals. Yet the poetry remains untouched, lingering like shadows. Minutes slip. Your body feels them less. Your thoughts dissolve. Time continues, but your awareness of it frays like threads pulled loose. Rain softens everything it touches, even the sharp edges of seconds. And so, time becomes less of a ruler and more of a tide. Not measured, not counted, only felt. You take a breath and let it out slowly. You feel the clock's tick merge with your breath, with your heartbeat, with the storm outside. All are rhythms, each in their own scale. And for a moment, you imagine they are one rhythm, a single vast pulse stretching across the night. But in that thought lies a question, quiet but insistent. If clocks measure time, and storms reshape it, and your body feels it differently still, then what is the truest rhythm, the one that lies beneath them all? The window glows faintly with the storm's light. Drops of water cling to the glass, heavy and round, stretching, merging, then sliding downward. Each one carries a small world inside it, a tiny lens that bends the view beyond. You lean closer, drawn into the quiet distortion. The night outside ripples, the garden bends, the shadows move like liquid paint. And there, mingled with the streaks of rain, your reflection hovers, strange, softened, unfamiliar. It is your face, yet not entirely. The storm has borrowed it, reshaped it. Every drop shifts the curve of your cheeks, elongates your eyes, tilts the corners of your mouth into unfamiliar expressions. You stare, curious, a little unsettled, as though you are meeting someone for the very first time. The science is simple, but the feeling is not. Light travels from your face to the glass, bouncing back toward you. Yet the raindrops interfere, each one bending light through the curved surface of its water. This bending is called refraction, the same principle that allows a spoon in a glass of water to look bent or a straw to appear broken at the surface. Water does not pass light in a straight line. It curves it, plays with it, bends it toward new shapes. And so, your face in the storm is never quite your own. It is an altered self, an echo painted by water and glass. You might remember, perhaps, the first time you noticed this trick as a child, leaning over a puddle, watching your reflection ripple with every breeze, delighted that you could stretch your features into something magical. Science explains the process, yet the feeling, the quiet wonder of seeing yourself transform, remains timeless. As you watch, the droplets slide in paths across the pane, dragging your reflection along with them. One eye elongates and sinks. Your mouth splits in two. For a moment, the image looks almost like a stranger, someone leaning just as close from the other side of the window. You know it is not true. You know this is light and water and your brain's willingness to make faces from fragments. Yet your heart lingers on the possibility, because the human mind is a storyteller, always searching for patterns, always stitching order from chaos. This instinct is ancient. Faces are among the first patterns the brain learns to recognize. A newborn turns instinctively toward the outline of eyes and mouth, comforted by their shape. Over time, this deep wiring remains. It is why you see animals in clouds, shapes in shadows, stories in raindrops. And here, tonight, it is why the storm's distortions summon a stranger's gaze from your own reflection. The glass trembles softly with the pressure of wind. Outside, lightning flares, and in its sudden light, the stranger's face sharpens. Not just warped features now, but almost a person peering back. You exhale, slow and even, reminding yourself of the truth. The brain seeks meaning. The eyes see fragments. The mind completes them. Scientists call this pareidolia, the tendency to perceive faces and forms where none exist. It is not a flaw, but a gift of perception. To find order in chaos is to survive. To see a predator in the brush before it moves, to notice a human form in the shadows of night. Your ancestors lived by this skill, and tonight, as you watch your reflection twist with the rain, you carry their instinct still. Yet something more subtle stirs in you. For in the warped reflection, you see not only a stranger, you see possibility. The stranger looks like someone both familiar and distant, a shadow self, a version of you that the storm has imagined. And the longer you gaze, the more you wonder how many selves live inside the mirrors of the world. The thought is gentle, not frightening. You know that identity is not a single, fixed face. It shifts like raindrops sliding down glass. You are one person in the quiet of your room, another in the company of friends, another still in the reflections of strangers' eyes. Perhaps the storm is not showing you a stranger at all, but simply another version of you, one you rarely pause to meet. The glass fogs softly with your breath. You lift a hand and trace your fingertip across the pane, smudging the image. The stranger vanishes, then reforms, bent once more by the fresh lines of water. The storm continues its slow artistry, rearranging your features in endless variations. There is science here too, quiet and intricate. Each drop of rain is not merely a blur on glass, but a convex lens. A lens curves outward, bending light inward, magnifying or stretching what lies behind. 1,000 tiny lenses scatter across the pane, each creating its own unique version of the world outside, and of you. Some reflections are tall and narrow, others wide and soft. Together, they layer into an ever-shifting mosaic. And so, what you see is never a single truth, but a collection of many truths. Each drop tells its own small story of light. Each one alters the way you appear. In this way, the storm teaches you something subtle about perception itself. That what you see is never the thing in itself, but the thing translated, bent by light, colored by context, shaped by the lenses through which you look. Your reflection is not you, but a painting made of physics. And so is the face others see when they look at you. Their eyes, their memories, their feelings refract the truth into their own image. Perhaps you're always both yourself and the stranger in the reflection. You lean back, breathing slow, letting this thought drift through you like a tide. Outside, the rain does not hurry. Each drop makes its journey down the glass in its own time, carrying its own distortion, whispering its own version of you. The storm feels almost companionable now. The stranger in the glass is not a ghost, not a warning, but a reminder that identity is wide and perception is gentle, and even science itself is an act of seeing through shifting lenses. You wonder how many other illusions play quietly in your daily life. Sounds that become whispers, shadows that become stories, moments where the mind completes patterns that were never there. And yet, perhaps, in those illusions there is not only error, but beauty. The rain does not lie. It simply tells a different truth. As the glass grows heavier with droplets, your reflection grows softer, harder to distinguish. Soon it is only a blur of light and shadow dissolving into the storm. You close your eyes, letting the memory of the stranger remain with you, like a gentle question without an answer. And you find yourself wondering, as sleep drifts nearer, what other illusions the night still holds.